Great, thank you. Hi, welcome to the Town of Swampscott Zoning Board of Appeals December meeting. We are going to get started. We have Tony remote, and then our fifth member for this petition is away, but she's going to watch the video. So our first order of business is to approve the minutes from 9/16, 10/21, 10/28, and 11/18. Can we just have a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to approve those meeting minutes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then we're also going to continue, we're going to skip for right now our second item. We're going to go straight to the petition 2518, which is 80 Puritan Road, which is, has requested to be continued to our January meeting, which is
January
20th. Okay, which is 1/20. So we just need a motion to continue that.
I'll give a motion to continue that.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And then petition 2519 is also requested to be continued to the January 20th meeting.
Make a motion to continue that.
All right. And Mark's going to second it.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. All right. So all the business is done. So now we're going to return to petition 2515, which is 10 New Ocean Street and the comprehensive special permit for Veterans Crossing. We had a lot of very recent information, so we're all, I'm not sure how everyone else feels, but I'm still kind of going through it. We got a lot of stuff yesterday and today, and yeah, so there's just definitely a lot to go through. So do you want to, does someone want to start with kind of answering, or do you want to start with sort of what the concerns were, or where would you both like to start on that?
Maybe summarizing.
Yeah, I mean, I can do a quick summary. There were, I'm just trying to find my sheet here. Okay. All right, so there were a lot of concerns about the culvert, number one. About...
Has the meeting started? I can't hear anybody. I think you're still on mute.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're going to wait. We're going to hold tight.
Great, thank you.
Can you hear us now, Tony?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Excellent. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
How are you?
All right, so as far as, there were a lot of concerns about the culvert and the design of the culvert, and I noticed that when we got the responses, there was sort of a lot of wait and see, like we're gonna, these are problems gonna be solved later on down the line. And as far as I'm concerned, that makes me uncomfortable. Like, I wanna make sure that we have this stuff straightened out before we move forward with the comprehensive special permit, because this is an area where we know there's a lot of flooding. We know when there's flooding, people have sewage in their yards. We know that the sewage and the storm are overworked already. So if we're going to be putting an additional burden, I want to make sure it's all ironed out in this process where we have peer review, we have the engineers here to kind of go through that. So there was also, those concerns about the culvert, definitely some concerns about the sewer. And I don't know if anybody wants to highlight the top things, or...
Sure. I do have a colleague joining me, Eileen. I don't think she's on yet, but I can certainly get started, and Eileen can join me when she joins. But definitely the three utilities we were charged to look at: water, sewer, stormwater. So stormwater, the big item was the culvert relocation, and we talked a lot with Gino and Marzi last week and the week before about kind of the ownership of that project. Does it belong in this permit? Is it a town-owned project? Should it be on a parallel track? So I think those discussions are still ongoing, but my understanding from Gino, and I think he's online, is that he wants to keep the culvert discussion within the comprehensive permit discussion and not remove it, because we had talked about...
I mean, it was definitely brought up on day one of this hearing as far as what would happen with a culvert, and it was definitely on the developer side for the moving of it.
Okay. But the town has received some grant funding, I understand, to do it. So to some extent, it's going to be a public project, publicly bid project. So that's one of the big stormwater concerns. On the sewer side, we had some concerns about the sewer they were tying into on Pine Street is very flat, the existing sewer. The initial tie-in point, so they did, since our discussion, move the tie-in point a little further down to where the slope is greater. So we're going to look at that a little more closely and just ensure that there's enough sewer capacity there to take this additional flow. Because there was some flow calculations done, and true that the last building was, considered light industrial, and there's sewer flow calculations you can do that correspond to light industrial, and this new use actually shows a lower sewer flow if you use the categories, but we all know that there was, not a lot going on in that building before, so there is in real life going to be a lot more flow, regardless of the use and the calculations and.
Right,
So-
rather than these sort of abstract calculations based on other, it says they were using the 18,000 square foot factory in Massachusetts estimated wastewater. We have to have these bills of the water calculations in town. We can tell what, so rather than making estimates, I feel like we should just kind of pull those records and find that information so that
Sure.
it's accurate.
Sure, and just, true that up. So that was kind of our big sewer concern, was the tie-in point, but they did move it, so we're gonna look more closely at where they moved it to. And then on the water side, the initial plan set had showed a 12-inch main in Pine Street where they were gonna tie in, and it's actually only a 6-inch there. And Gino has had some breaks on that main and has seen the condition of the main. It's not in great shape, so we did provide a comment saying, is there enough capacity? It's not a 12-inch, it's a 6-inch. So those discussions are ongoing. I mean, according to the hydrant flow, there is enough capacity, but we know that the integrity of that main is not great. So, and it's only a 6-inch. That, according to Gino, was choked way down just because it's so old. So that's kind of the high level things with the water, sewer, and stormwater. And if Eileen comes on, she can chime in. But maybe we can start there. I mean, there's a lot of details in each one, but
Right.
those were the kind of the high level things we've been talking about the last couple of days.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Lemieux with Hancock Associates. Is this on? Is everyone hearing me okay? Civil engineer on the project, 315 Elm Street in Marlborough, Mass. So as far as the culvert goes, we understand that the board wants surety before they move forward in issuing the comprehensive permit that replacement is going to be able to be done in kind and within the scope of the project, which is understandable. The reason that generally for this type of design, we would ask that it be conditioned so that we can move past the comprehensive permit stage and get into the stage where we pull in contractors who will do the specific design. So we're planning on pulling in a company such as Conspan, who does groundwater culverts, and they have all the calculation and design manuals to calculate the capacity properly. We can do a preliminary capacity study, which just shows the amount of flow that section that we're replacing of culvert can handle, and that we can replace it with the sections of culvert shown on the plans and mathematically match those capacities. So we would not ask that you go forward without surety that the culvert's going to be done as part of the project, but rather that it be conditioned in a way that allows the project to continue and getting to that stage with you having a surety that that's going to be done, even if it's as simple as a condition saying it'll be replaced in kind with equivalent flow at a minimum, or to be replaced pending peer review. And ultimately, what generally happens and what we've done over at Elm Place and Swampscott here for the previous filings is that we work this plan, which is the preliminary plans that shows the feasibility of the project and the waivers that are required for the project. The Zoning Board of Appeals will make that comprehensive permit issuance with a condition that, well, we'll work through each individual condition. So if there are specific conditions, like you want so many parking spaces or so much lighting, we can work through that. And John and we can work through that with you to come up with specific conditions and also some general conditions, such as maybe conditioning that the building permit be issued only upon the submittal of a final conform plan set to the planning board, to the zoning board, to then be peer reviewed in its finality as the design plans rather than just the preliminary schematic plans.
I think this is a great area to ask Paul
Yeah,
about his thoughts on those types of conditions.
yeah, because in
This is my
general, this
experience
is our time to do the peer review. This is when we have those resources. So the concern about waiting as a condition of the special permit is, will this peer review ever happen? We have someone here who is telling us that the engineering, that there's concerns about the two 90-degree angles in this short amount of space, and there's, a bunch of other concerns that, like I said, we just got a lot of this information, so we're still kind of going through it all. But the response was, we'll figure it out along the way, or we'll wait and see. And that for some of these things, I would love to.
Right, but I'm also, my understanding with a lot of, I know from like the Elm Place one that we did, learning that if there's something that's a town-wide problem, putting it on the developer to do it. This is different because it's actually on the land that's being used.
It can't, the town would not be moving this culvert if this project wasn't happening. So the culvert is being moved to make room for this project.
Right.
We know there's problems in this area that are
Right, but I
have been going
don't
on a
know
long
if we
time,
can,
but we also know we are adding, there's going to be a huge increase in strain on these systems that we know can't handle the capacity they have now.
Yeah.
So if we're adding a strain and not doing any of the infrastructure to support it, it's going to cause.
right, I'm just wondering about what our jurisdiction is here and authority, and I think Paul could really help us out.
Yeah.
He probably has a great idea about that.
Hi,
I'm
Paul.
not sure I have any great ideas, but I'm certainly happy to help out. So in the first instance, the board has to issue a decision at the end of this process, and that decision has to encompass everything. You cannot leave for later peer review of any subject. Any peer review that's going to occur has to happen as part of this hearing process. It can't happen afterwards. Now, you can try to craft a decision that addresses concerns and requires additional information to be submitted with the final plans, because again, the board is ultimately issuing a decision on preliminary plans, not on final plans. So there is some leeway there, but you cannot do a peer review of those final plans. So which is to say, you can't leave for post-permit review whether or not the stormwater system is going to adequately function. That has to be determined as part of your review while the hearing is still open. I think that the question as to whether or not the town has some responsibility for addressing this issue or whether it's on the developer is an interesting question. There is certainly a significant amount of Housing Appeals Committee case law that says that municipality can't require an applicant to be responsible for more than whatever their fair share improvement is. So to the extent that there is some improvement needed anyways, irrespective of this project, you can't place it upon the burden of the applicant to make those fixes. But the board certainly can require the applicants to contribute its fair share to be upgraded as necessary.
Thank you, Paul. That's really helpful.
Welcome.
So, I mean, we can, rather than go through all the, everything one by one, I think that there's a lot there that, like I said, I don't know if even everyone on this board has digested it yet because it just came in today, but I think that my feeling is that a lot of these questions that were brought up by our peer review need to be resolved. They can't just be, we'll wait and see. I don't think that's fair to the neighbors.
Well, that's what Paul's telling
And
us
Paul's
too.
telling us you
We don't
can't do
have a
peer
second
review.
bite at it.
Yeah, we don't have an opportunity to do a second peer review. So, so I don't know what you want to do. If you want to more thoroughly answer the concerns of the peer review, and we can then discuss those answers. Hopefully we'll have a little more time to digest it before we meet again.
My thought on it was that after this meeting, we really should have Marzi, peer review, Hancock, working, and perhaps with Paul, trying to figure out, when all the facts are known as to what we have, what needs to be done, what can be done, and working towards what's an appropriate condition to assure we'd be able to issue this permit, or not, at the time that we need to vote, and really trying to get the process on the right track, because it seems like there's a lot of moving pieces with public funding, with design, testing. It really seems monumental to me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a paper guy, not an engineer.
If I may say something, John Smolak, attorney for the applicant. I guess I don't disagree with what Paul had to say, and I think it's worth further discussion in terms of what needs to be done to resolve that particular issue. But I mean, there's also a protection for the town to ensure that the matter is resolved prior to the issuance of a building permit or some other milestone. And I've been in circumstances where, limited peer review has been done to assure and satisfy that concern in other decisions that I've dealt with. So I'd like
That's voluntary, right?
That's true.
I think that's what Paul's saying, is that we could put the condition in, but it really doesn't have any teeth, because we can't have it. But if the applicant voluntarily says, oh yeah, we want to make sure this is right, and does it, it's voluntary, they can do that.
Right. Well, certainly we want to resolve this, and we also have a situation where we certainly understand the fact that we want to resolve this particular issue. On the other hand, too, we have sort of deadlines for filing for the state filing. So we certainly have the incentive to resolve this issue and to perhaps throw some funding toward it dedicated for peer review, and such that there would be a situation where we could have a precondition of the issuance of the building permit. The sewer matter has to be satisfactorily resolved
So
to the satisfaction of the
what about,
DPW. So
I know we have this tight time frame for voting, but I know that and I understand you have a time frame for permitting, or for looking for different funding. I don't know where both of those are lining up right now, and if this issue does continue to present a problem, if the petitioner would extend their time voluntarily for us to act on the comprehensive permit, if it looks like everyone's working to try and get this solved.
We haven't, when do we have until February? Our February meeting would be?
Yes.
Would be when,
Today, we're at day 116 for the permit, and then we have until February 19th, I believe. We have the timeline, if you just bear with us for 1 minute, because I thought it was February 19th, I believe. Yeah. It's actually, it's actually February 18th.
18.
Then that would be 180 days since the hearing opened up. And then we have 40 days after that.
Madam Chair?
to issue.
Sorry, who's that coming from?
Joe Pisnola from Hancock Associates. I'm also working on the project with Jacob Lemieux. Just wanted to kind of offer my input here with regards to the process. We understand the concerns with regards to the three main issues, which are the culvert, the water supply, and the sewer. I think we're on top of the sewer. I think some of the sewer issues in the area, Gino can tell you, there was a lot of clogged pipes in the area, and his department has worked diligently to not only clear those pipes, but also slip line those pipes. And when you slip line sewer, you do increase the capacity. We've taken the peer review comments and moved the connection point into I think a pipe with more slope on it, and we can continue to work with the peer reviewers to work that out. So I think we can get on top of the sewer fairly quickly. As was said, with regards to the water, hydrant flow tests proximate to the site, do show good volume and pressure. We'll continue to work with Gino on any concerns that he has with regards to the age of the pipe. But as Mr. Haverty said, we've got to separate what might be an existing condition from something that's born or caused by the project itself. With regard to the culvert, it's important to note that we're not adding any water to this culvert, and it has a capacity. I think the peer review team, their concern is the introduction of these angles in the culvert to relocate it, and the impact that those additional angles will have on the culvert's capacity. It is our design premise here to not decrease the capacity of the culvert. So the way we do that is to make up for the fact that there are these angles which introduce some restrictions, some head losses, is to widen the culvert. We were asked to do some preliminary calculations. We just ran those today, and it's looking like that the culvert would have to be widened to 5 or 6 feet from 4 feet to accommodate for that. And we can share those preliminary calculations with the peer review team to make sure that they're comfortable that it's technically feasible. So unlike a stormwater design that might, that we need to treat stormwater and recharge stormwater and attenuate stormwater, this is a fairly simple question, which is what's the impact of putting some angle points in this culvert to the capacity. We can answer that. We can get our arms around that. What we're asking the board to consider is to condition that final details of that, which is something that is baked into the 40B process, only requiring preliminary plans. Final plans will detail, physically how the culvert will be constructed, but we can answer the question during the process: how do we maintain capacity? How do we make sure that there's no reduction in capacity and therefore there's no change from the existing condition? Again, we're not adding any new water to this culvert, so it's not a question of analyzing that. It's just a question of analyzing what is the current capacity and what is the capacity of the relocated culvert. And as long as we prove that they're equal, I think we've passed the test and we can get to that point of comfort. So I think what we're looking to do is define the level of detail that we need to provide to get to that comfort point, and then as is the normal process within 40B, condition that final plans and details be provided after the comprehensive permit, but prior to prior to the start of construction. I will challenge Mr. Haverty on his point on peer review. I've been involved with literally hundreds of Chapter 440Bs across the state, both in a capacity as a design engineer, but now also in a capacity as advisor to zoning boards. And I've seen countless comprehensive permits issued that have a peer review element in it that is post-issuance of the comprehensive permit. The condition has to be carefully crafted, though, to not be a subsequent approval, but be a peer review to verify that the conditions of the comprehensive permit have been satisfied, and that the elevated construction level detail is consistent with the approved preliminary plans. And I think that's totally acceptable. It's something that the applicant would bear the cost of, or the applicants bear the cost of when such a condition is placed. And it allows your team to stay plugged in as those details are provided. But the big questions have to be answered as we're still in the process, and I think within the next couple of weeks we can do that.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. It sounds like what we have, the responses we have here that are sort of these copy and paste, this will be done further down the road, that you are actually working on those things, and so there is more information forthcoming. What we got as a response was basically on C1 through 4, the same copy and paste of this will be figured out down the line. But it sounds like you are working on figuring that out now, and that you will have more information for us by our next meeting, hopefully before our next meeting, so that we can have time to review it rather than getting it all of this last minute. So that sounds good.
Before your next meeting. And Madam Chair, this is we're evolving on the fly now, hearing your concern, hearing Mr. Haverty's input, hearing the peer review input, and appreciating your concerns that the answers to these questions come forth within the confines of the public hearing.
That's what we would like. We'd like to have answers to the questions that haven't been answered, and then for the one that stood out to me was the answer to the question about the sewage capacity. I would really like the question was. The question was, the proposed housing will significantly increase wastewater flow from the land's previous use. Have any studies been performed to determine capacity of the 8-inch sewer in Pine Street? And the answer was, there is no increase in capacity. And I think that answer doesn't sit well with us. So we really want answers to the question, which was, have any studies been performed to determine capacity of the 8-inch sewer in Pine Street? And answer to that question, we know there's an increase. The answer can't be there is no increase, because, and if we want to verify that, please reach out to Town Hall and get the billing for those spaces, the VFW and the garage that was pretty much not in use over the past many years. So that would be the way to kind of answer that question.
From the standpoint of when the sewers were put in the streets and what the flows were at one time, that's it. But today, to understand the capacities of the sewer, we would have to do something similar to what we did on the wind project, and do flow monitoring, and then understand what the peaks in that sewer are, to then understand what capacity is remaining in that system, and how does our added capacity. So it's not really something that we could do, within this time frame. So it's similar to when that was conditioned post-permit, that study be done, and that we prove that the capacity is there. and what the developer, the risk the developer bore at that time was having to increase the size of that pipe. Should the study find that there is insufficient capacity.
But we then run into the situation where
because of the time,
we may not be able to peer review that study, which we would like to do. So that's why we'd like it to be done before.
well, what I'm saying is that's what happened on the wind project. That was done after the issuance of the comprehensive permit. Essentially, the information that's gathered at that time is what is the peak flow in the sewer, and the available capacity is a fairly simple a simple calculation. And at that time, Gina was comfortable in reviewing that and saying, okay, there's still capacity here. And in that case, we didn't have to increase the size of the line. But if just the flow monitoring itself takes 6 weeks. So I think for us to engage somebody to go out there, we're talking well beyond February to be able to do that. And I think it is appropriate, as it was in wind, to condition them.
I mean, if we don't have time to do all these things in the length of time and we need to have an extension, then we need to have an extension. This neighborhood is very different. There are known issues. There's known capacity issues. And so if we don't document them now, and then document what the added flow is, I mean, the neighbors have a right to have a concern about the added flow and the capacity of these.
And Madam Chair, I'm not suggesting that we are not going to do our due diligence and make sure that there is no detrimental impacts. I'm just talking about the timing on that study, not trying to avoid the study, not trying to avoid the subject. We're just trying to work within the timeframes. And it was, as I said, it was appropriate to do that post issuance of the comprehensive permit on wind, and I see no difference. I think if we could hear from Gino on this, I think some of the prior problems in the neighborhood with the sewer was due to the clogging, and that has been rectified, and many of the lines have been slip lines. So that's the first step. I'm not saying that that's the only step. We will commit to do the study and commit to improve the infrastructure should it be found that our project sends it into an overcapacity situation.
And if I may add, and add to Joe's comments, I think that it's perfectly reasonable to proceed on the basis of what Joe suggested, even if it is post-decision, because we're not going to get a building permit unless the town is satisfied as to that capacity. So I think there is a protection there for the town, and again, we're not trying to skirt anything. We're just trying to sort of extend the conceptual plans into a final stage such that the board feels satisfied going forward that all these matters will be resolved prior to a shovel in the ground or pulling a building permit.
Well, I think that there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered yet, so I think we're a little premature with this conversation. I'm hoping that we have a better response to the peer review so that we can discuss it further. And I'd like to hopefully meet when you're meeting so that I can kind of hear where we're at along the process between now and next meeting, so that we have time to kind of say what I personally think I'm only one person on this board, but what I would need to feel more comfortable, because I think at this point, there's just not, this isn't a great response to our peer review. It's not thorough enough, just has too much weighting, but it sounds like that's stuff you're working on, and everything's trying to, happen very quickly. I don't know if
Should we
anybody
hear
else on
from
that.
Gino, that suggestion about the issues that are existing?
Sure, Gino, are you there?
Only a name.
He's here in name.
I am, can you hear?
Hi, Gino.
Yep, I'm hearing you. Hello, how are
So,
you?
do you have anything to add to I mean, at this point, there hasn't been a flow study or a flow monitoring of that culvert, so, of that sewer drain on Pine Street, but do you have anything to add about what you do know about that drain?
Yep. Well, one thing I can do, I can't unequivocally state that we have resolved the sewer issue over on Pine Street. But what I can tell you is we've made significant improvements by removing all the debris that we had built up in that main over probably the last 100 years. We did split line the mains. I am confident that we have made progress. However, we haven't hit a real rainstorm with the high tides over there. The issue is with the sewer. I am comfortable with that. And then the other comment I would like to make is about the drain in the back. The drain has nothing to do with the flooding issues. So once we come up with a design for relocating the drain pipe going through the property and we remove all the bends, I'm comfortable with that problem. There isn't a problem, that we're not adding any capacity to that. So we should be in good shape with that preliminary design, although I'm still waiting to see the final design.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Does anybody else on the board have questions about the
I agree with
peer
you.
review? All right, so I feel like we need a lot more information at this point. And we can hopefully review some of it between now, like a lot sooner than the day before the meeting, so that we can all kind of have questions and have time for you to actually respond to those questions before the meeting, so we're not running down the clock, because I know that's a big issue. I also want to open up to the public comment to see if anybody has any questions. You've listened to this and we're working on it. Hopefully this was enough for you, and this conversation isn't ending today. So if that makes you comfortable, we can go to, okay, thank you. And then is there anybody who is online who has a question? They can use the raise their hand button. All right, is there anything else? Oh, Paul, I was wondering, there was a new, a new list of waivers. Do you have that? Sorry, we can't hear you, Paul.
Now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I did get that, I have not had the opportunity to review it yet.
I have not either, so if that's something, if you don't mind reviewing and then sharing
Absolutely.
comments that we can then share with the board, so we all can look at that, that would be great.
Certainly, and I can actually get going on drafting the decision if you would like, or I don't know when you wanted me to begin doing that.
I think that's a great idea. I know you might think it's premature, but it's such a short time frame.
Yeah, no, that's fine, to start
but-
working on that, that would be great, and we can,
Certainly, and I did just want to respond to Joe Pesnola's comments as it relates to the timing and the sort of the ability to do a post-permit peer review. So the decision that really controls is Board of Appeals of Amesbury versus Housing Appeals Committee. And in that decision, the Supreme Judicial Court determined that a Board of Appeals, when issuing a comprehensive permit, has to make all decisions that are required for all local permits at the time that they're issuing the permit. So you can't delay an approval to post-permitting. So that's sort of where I was coming from in saying that you can't do a peer review post-permit in the sense that once you issue your decision, the approval has already been issued. So if you come up with a peer review that states that something, doesn't work, there's nothing you can do because you've already issued the permit.
Yeah.
That being said, there is certainly a fair amount of leeway to create, conditions that don't require the applicant to fully design during the approval process and instead require post-permit. So some of these issues with regards to whether there is sufficient sewer capacity, well, if the issue is whether or not they need to make upgrades to the municipal infrastructure, that potentially could be resolved through conditions, in your decision to state, yes, we are approving a connection to the municipal sewer system. However, the final plans have to depict, that there will be adequate capacity, and if not, what upgrades are necessary, to create that additional capacity. So there are ways of handling it where you can, make your decision, have that decision be solidified, but still dependent upon, additional information.
Great, thank you.
Okay?
I think I would want the capacity to be, and I know you said it's a 6-week process, but if you know that it's a 6-week process, it should probably be starting, because I think that's an important thing to do. So I would recommend doing it.
Sorry.
The flow capacity.
The flow capacity, yes.
Yeah, I would recommend doing it. I know you said it's a 6-week process, but we probably should have started it 4 weeks ago then. But I think that should be a priority, because I want to know if we need upgrades to our, I want to be able to condition that, but I also would like to know if we see upgrades needed, and not have that be a surprise.
We certainly want to make sure and assure the board that whatever we're going to do is going to be conditioned such that the board feels satisfied that we're going to be able to resolve those capacity issues.
Yeah.
One other item I did want to mention is that coming into this evening, I was going to volunteer to draft the decision. Attorney Haverty is, I guess, already drafting it, but if the board would allow between now and the next hearing for myself to have a discussion with Paul about the contents of the decision and waivers, we'd be happy to try to sort of deal with those details and bring something more final to the board for the next meeting if we are able to resolve these other issues in advance as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I think everyone here, everyone on this board needs to look at this list of waivers and make sure.
Right, but letting them collaborate on a
is
decision,
helpful.
I think, is great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Any other questions, concerns? No? All right, can we get them? We will continue this to our next meeting. I am also not against scheduling meetings with the whole board, if the board's available, that are separate from our regular monthly meeting, because I know that we want to get this done, and so if there's a bulk of information that we have time to sit and review, and we think we should discuss it publicly, I'm not against that. We've done that before with 40B projects, especially when there's a full docket, just to get it, not with everybody else, but luckily it's been pretty light. But
I think we have some additional information that they're going to be looking for.
did you have a question?
Progress meeting? Yeah. So would it make sense to have a progress meeting, or would it make sense with the board, or for internally for the peer review and Hancock to progress in the next 2 weeks and have a meeting? You mentioned that you would also like to participate. Would that be a board? Would that be a joint?
Well, we can't have the whole board there
Oh,
unless it's a
okay.
public meeting, so I could go, but we couldn't all go
Okay.
It's
otherwise.
important so that we can all understand sort of what level we need to bring the design to, where the board feels comfortable that they're covered by whatever conditions are in the comprehensive
Yeah.
permit.
And I do think this particular area of town is more sensitive when it comes to water capacity, sewage, and then we've got the culvert on top of it. I don't think it can be, well, it's the same as another project, it's just not. This neighborhood's very unique in the issues that they've had, and adding to the capacity is something we have to really think about a lot. So I just want to make sure that, that's why we might be seeing this differently than we saw another
Right.
project.
But my understanding is what we have for authority is only if they are making it worse than the existing condition, do we have the ability to condition it and make improvements. But if it's a system-wide problem, that we have, the
That,
problems,
yeah, no, I understand that, but if
it's
at
their
this.
proportionate share of
It's a
that.
proportionate share, exactly. And when we, like I said, when we look at the answer to, I think it was S1, sewer 1, I think that answer needs to be flushed out as to what the actual change is, because common sense says something different than what this says. So we
Yep.
need to make sure that that's, so that then we have that documented. All right, so we have a, so we will continue this to our
January 20th.
January 20th meeting.
I'll make a motion to continue to January 20.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second?
second it.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Hey,